Hi, this is Mark Austin, and I'm one of the founders of So You Want the Truth About. Today we're going to talk about the Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett, and packing the court. And before I dive into all that, there were a couple quick things I wanted to say since this is our first episode. So first, if you're watching this now, you probably found us on Instagram, and I want to sincerely thank all of our supporters on that platform, and please subscribe to our channel here on YouTube as well. So the amount of positive comments we get, messages, praise, people sharing our page, it really is overwhelming. We've grown faster than we could have imagined, and we're sincerely thankful and happy that we're a page that people find valuable, and all the praise does motivate us to continue to produce more content. So thank you a lot for your support. And second, I did want to address a little bit about the purpose of our page. So we get a lot of requests to debunk certain posts from, the other page, right? So you want to talk about. And obviously our name is meant to present us as a counter to their propaganda. Yet we don't exist simply to refute what they have to say. Now, I do appreciate the requests, and we do want to know what is on the minds of our followers. So we want to hear what people want to hear about. But I don't want to just always respond to what they have to say, because I think one of the failures of the modern conservative movement is to always let the left control the narrative. And when you look at how much the conservative movement has conserved the last 40 years, unfortunately, it's not that much. So I want us to talk about what we want to talk about. We want to influence, we want to drive the narrative, and focus on what we think we have good things to say about and what we think is important. And sometimes we may respond to a post of theirs, but that's not all we want to do, because we don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive, and we want to be moving forward with, where we want to see this country go. Now, diving into the content for today's episode. So Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation hearing began this week, and Lindsey Graham right away said that he expects it to be a contentious week. And the reason it's going to be a contentious week is because of how differently the right and left view the Supreme Court. So the right wing views the Supreme Court as a court of judges, and all judges who work for the federal government, that rule on the law based on how it is written. They're supposed to interpret the law, not formulate new policy, set aside their personal preferences, and just say, this is what the law is, this is justice under the laws that is written. Now, that is not the vision that the left wing has for the courts. When the left wing follows people like Saul Alinsky, who dedicate books to Satan and believe the ends justify the means, well, they think that anything that moves forward leftism is worthwhile. It doesn't matter what we do, by hook or by crook. If we're moving forward our cause, we're going to do it. And this is very visible with the Supreme Court. The left wing uses the Supreme Court to essentially legislate, to push forward left-wing agendas and policies. This can be seen very clearly in things like gay marriage, abortion, etc. Laws weren't passed to make federal gay marriage a thing. The left just used the court to make that happen. And the left loves to move policies forward in this manner. And they think, and that's why you hear the left use language like it's a living constitution. That the Constitution needs to be able to change, to adapt to modern times. And really what they just mean is the Constitution needs to change to adapt to leftism, to enforce leftism. The problem is the Constitution has a mechanism for change. It's called the amendment process. But the issue for the left on that is it's very, very, very difficult. Another good example is the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment could not be more clear. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And the well-regulated language, the militia language, if you look at the Founding Fathers' writings, it's very clear that's not a National Guard, that's not government regulation, that is not what the Second Amendment means. It absolutely means the individual right to own a firearm. But the left constantly passes laws that clearly violate this. But they just think it should be okay, and they want judges to rule that it's okay. They want judges to tell you the Second Amendment doesn't mean exactly what it says it means. And what's scary is the Heller decision to uphold the Second Amendment as an individual right to keep and bear arms was a 5-4 decision. So the court has been divided, and there's been a lot of controversial rulings that have been 5-4. And I think some of the conservative judges, they're afraid of 5-4 rulings. They don't want to hurt the integrity of the court. They care about that more than upholding the Constitution, unfortunately. But with a 6-3 majority in the court with Amy Coney Barrett, maybe now they think, well, we can overturn Roe v. Wade with a 6-3 vote because it won't be as controversial because, it wasn't just a one vote decision. So I think the left really thinks that the conservatives in the court might actually vote to uphold the Constitution and put that first and foremost. And that's a real vulnerability for the left. And the reason why it is when you bypass the Constitution and you don't legislate through the legislative branch, it's easier to get things done, but that convenience comes at a cost. And the cost is that it's easier for the other side to overturn your essentially illegal laws. So same thing with executive orders. If a president uses executive orders beyond what they're meant to be, which they're meant to just be directives ordering the people in his branch under his authority, if instead they become legislation, new policies that the legislative branch did not give the executive branch to execute, well, presidents do that all the time. But the issue is, as soon as the other side gets a president in power, he just issues an executive order and immediately undoes what your president did. And that's part of why Trump's been so devastating to Obama's agenda and legacy is, Obama, I have a pen and a phone, right? I'll if Congress won't act, I will, right? Well, that works for when he's in power. But as soon as Trump is in power, he can undo a lot of that. Well, in the Supreme Court, even more so, because you have the rule of precedent, right? So what the Supreme Court says, it not only is the law of the land for them, but every single court underneath them. So when the Supreme Court has a ruling that is essentially new legislation, it's immediately enforced on the entire country. But as soon as the court might vote the other way, it can be immediately undone. And that is why the left freaks out over the Supreme Court so much. They've abused it, and now they're afraid that the ways they've abused it can be quickly undone because now they're not the ones controlling it anymore. So to kind of transition from that into Amy Coney Barrett, so she would be the 6th conservative, supposedly. I don't know if we can trust all 6. And that's why they're so concerned. And I do want to play a little bit of the attack from her by one of the Democrat senators. This is Senator Whitehouse.
This Supreme Court nominee has signaled in the judicial equivalent of all caps that she believes the Affordable Care Act must go and that the precedent protecting the ACA doesn't matter.
Senator Whitehouse is a little bit more restrained, and he mentions 2 of the 3 main attacks that the left has on Amy Coney Barrett. And those are that she's going to overturn Obamacare, that she doesn't think precedent should always be binding, and then their third attack on her is Roe v. Wade. She's going to turn women's rights back 100 years, right? So on her stating Obamacare is unconstitutional, yes, she did write in a legal paper that Justice Roberts turned the law into something it wasn't in order to save it. And that's exactly what he did. So she was just being factual in that writing. And here's the proof for that. When Obama and Biden were passing Obamacare, they knew that they couldn't let the right wing attack them on that they were increasing taxes through the individual mandate. So Obama constantly told the American people, this is not a tax, it's a fine for not complying. Well, as soon as the case went before the Supreme Court, how did the federal government have the constitutional authority to fine people if they don't abide by certain behavior? That's nowhere in the Constitution. Well, the Obama administration lawyers, when they argued the case before the Supreme Court, told the Supreme Court, oh no, that's not a fine, it's a tax. We have the authority to do that under our power to tax. So they completely reversed their position to the American people just for the court. And what Justice Roberts did is he ruled, sure, it is a tax, and under the power to tax, it's constitutional. And then what's interesting is the lie still continues now, because when Biden, he tweeted this the other day, I will not raise taxes on a single person who makes under $400,000 a year. Well, he is planning on restating the individual mandate, which, according to the Supreme Court and according to Obama attorneys to the Supreme Court, that's a tax. But now Obama's campaign just said in the last week, no, that's a fee, it's not a tax. Can you imagine, by the way, if a CEO of a major corporation ran their business this way? Or can you imagine if your husband or wife or your spouse spoke to you this way? You know, they said one thing to you, another thing to someone else, and then the same thing to you again. I mean, it's deception, it's lying right out in the open, right in your face, but they don't care because it's what they have to do to push forward their agenda. So, of course, Amy Coney Barrett essentially called them out on this, that John Roberts bought into their lie. They said it was fee before and after, but he allowed them to change it to a tax just to let the law pass. So, yeah, she might overturn Obamacare. It's not because she doesn't care about people's health care. It's because the law is unconstitutional. It's not a tax. They say it's not a tax. They just want it to be a tax just when the court rules. Now, on her statement about how precedent is not binding, I want you to think about this for a second. It's ludicrous to think that precedent should always be binding. I mean, the Supreme Court once ruled that slavery was constitutional. The Supreme Court once ruled separation but equal. It was okay to discriminate on race and have different schools for whites and different schools than blacks. So, should precedent on those cases be binding forever? Of course not. Those precedents were overturned. It's precedent of the Supreme Court to sometimes overturn laws despite their precedent. So the fact that she's being criticized for she won't honor the precedent of the Affordable Care Act or Roe v. Wade, how can you hold the court to that standard? I mean, judges, I'm sure, shouldn't care about it at all, right? Like it's meaningless, but clearly the court has made horrible mistakes before, so precedent cannot be binding at all times, or the court could never undo any of its mistakes. So that's just a bogus argument to just criticize her and make her seem like she doesn't respect the rule of law. And then on overturning Roe v. Wade, well, of course, conservatives hope that she'll do that, although she's been quoted as saying she doesn't think it'll ever get overturned. Maybe she didn't know she might be on the court when she said that. But did you know that both times that abortions have been upheld by the Supreme Court, the majority of justices were appointed by Republican presidents? That's the truth. I think for us to completely put our faith in the courts is a little misguided, unfortunately. And we'll see. There's no guarantee she'll overturn Roe v. Wade. But she could, and of course the left's going to attack her about that. Now, with respect to their other criticism, it's the fact that she's being confirmed at all, right? So they're accusing the Republicans of stealing Garland's seat, and now they're filling another vacancy right before an election, contradicting themselves then. So now they've essentially stolen 2 seats, right? So is the left going to just lay down and take this? Well, one thing you do have to respect about the left is they always fight and they always push forward their agenda. So no, they're not just gonna accept a Supreme Court that rules on the Constitution and won't rubber stamp leftism. That's not how they operate. So what are they gonna do? They're gonna pack the court, right? And this has been tried before, of course, by a Democrat. FDR didn't like how the Supreme Court ruled that a lot of the New Deal was blatantly unconstitutional. So instead of saying, okay, well, that's not the Constitution, so we either should amend the Constitution, or is there another way we can do this that is constitutional? Can we change the legislation? He just wanted to create a whole bunch of new openings on the court and fill it with people who'd rubber stamp whatever he wanted to do. And this was, I mean, FDR was loved. He's our only 3-term president. This wasn't popular then. In the midterm election, right after FDR tried packing the court, the Democrats lost a net of 8 Senate seats, which is a lot when there are only 100 to begin with, and 81 House seats. The American people did not like that then, and they do not like it now. So because of that, Biden doesn't want to admit that they're going to do this. So listen to what he's saying when he's being asked about this by the press.
Sir, I've got to ask you about packing the courts. And I know that you said yesterday you aren't going to answer the question until after the election. But this is the number one thing that I've been asked about from viewers in the past couple of days.
Well, you've been asked by the viewers who are probably Republicans who don't want me continuing to talk about what they're doing to the court right now.
Well, sir, don't the voters deserve to know
No,
where
they
you
don't.
stand?
I'm not going to play his game. He'd love me to talk about, and I've already said something on court pack. He'd love that to be the discussion instead of what he's doing now. He's about to make a pick in the middle of an election, first time it's ever been done. First time in history it's ever been done, number one. Number two, and it's going to go in and it's going to rip away health insurance.
So, first of all, this is an insane argument by Biden. I want to control the narrative. I want to only talk about Trump, so I'm not going to answer questions, so you can't talk about me. Even if what the Republicans were doing is wrong, don't the American voters still deserve to know how Biden would respond to that wrong once he was elected as president? Of course they deserve to know. And he had the gall to say the voter does not deserve to know, which that right there shows it's like Pelosi saying we have to pass a law in order to find out what's in it. They don't care about you. They don't want you to get a chance to have a referendum on leftist action. If they can hide it from you, if they can conceal it, and then just make you deal with it after the fact, it's because they know better than you. If you really look into the left-wing worldview, the progressive worldview, they view the average person as stupid, unable to make their own decisions, and they must be guided by the intellectual elite. That shapes a lot of their policy, explains a lot of what they do. And Biden right here is admitting it. You don't deserve to know a major potential course of action he would take as president. And you'll find it out the moment after he's elected, he said in another interview. So this is obviously a crazy take, and it's not popular. And by not answering the question, it looks like, well, if it was no, you just say no, so you probably will pack the court. And the Democrats know this is hurting them. So now there's a new strategy. Take a look at this.
Look, the only court packing is going on right now. It's going on with the Republicans packing the court now. It's not constitutional what they're doing.
So real quickly, I want to address this, and then we'll keep playing what he's talking about. So he said what the Republicans are doing right now is unconstitutional. So the Republicans are going to hold hearings and then vote to confirm a nominee appointed by a Republican president. What's unconstitutional about that? There's nothing. They're using the power that the Constitution expressly gives them. And, we made a post about this called Replacing Ginsburg on Instagram, and I encourage you to take a look at it. There have been 29 vacancies in presidential election years, and presidents have appointed a Supreme Court nominee all 29 times. And when you look at how those 29 times break out, what the math shows is the majority of the time the same party holds the Senate and the presidency. They go ahead and confirm the nominee. And then when there's divided government, the Senate normally blocks the president's nominee and says, hey, let's wait till after the election, and whoever wins will get to take care of it. So the Republicans have been consistent with that both times. They used their constitutional authority to not confirm when it was Garland, and they're using their constitutional authority now to confirm. So what Biden just said right there is a blatant lie. He could call them hypocrites, and they're still not quite hypocrites, but he can try and make that accusation, and that would be one thing. But to just say it's unconstitutional, it is not true.
We focus on what's happening right now. And the fact is that the only packing going on is this court is being packed now by the Republicans after the vote has already begun. I'm going to stay focused on it so we don't take our eyes off the ball here.
So this is very interesting, very deceptive, but to be expected. So I mentioned earlier, the left has been good at controlling the narrative, and the right has often failed to. One reason the left has been very good at this is the left is very particular about, hey, what's the language being used to describe the issues? And if they don't like it, they change it. So illegal immigration is a perfect example. We can't call them illegal immigrants. That doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound sympathetic towards them. Let's call them undocumented workers. Even though illegal immigrant is a much more accurate and factual and legal description of people who come here illegally, they just change the term. Another real good example of where they're doing this is actually with the abortion issue right now. So historically, it's been pro-choice if you're pro-abortion, and pro-life if you're pro-keeping babies alive in their mother's wombs and not allowing them to be aborted. Well, the Democrats realize it doesn't sound good to be against the pro-life position, to not be pro-life. And the pro-life label, on the other hand, sounds very good. So what are they doing? They're saying, no, Republicans aren't pro-life. They're just pro-birth. To be pro-life, you must support leftist policies because babies and toddlers and kindergartners and grade school kids can't possibly survive a good life without government, taking care of them every single step of the way. So if you don't support leftist policies, you can't possibly care about the lives of others. So you're not pro-life, you're pro-birth. Because if you were pro-life, you'd be a leftist. Well, obviously that's absurd, but what they're doing is they're trying to steal that label. They don't like the fact that their opponents have the label, so they're going to take it. And they're doing the same, but kind of the opposite thing here with court packing. They don't want the label of they're packing the courts. They know it sounds bad. They know the American people are against it. So what are they doing? They're saying, no, the right's the real court packers. By filling this vacancy, they're packing the court. So Republican Senates filling vacancies of people who they think judge the right way is packing the court. No, the Republicans didn't do anything to create these vacancies. These vacancies came about by the natural course of events, whether people were stepped down or passed away. That's what the last three, including Barrett, vacancies were created by. And the Republicans have used their constitutional authority to try and make sure that there's judges who will uphold the Constitution. It is the left wing and the left wing only talking about creating vacancies out of thin air by artificially inflating the size of the court just so they can fill it with a bunch of left-wing judges to push through leftism. The left wing must own this label. And everyone knows that's what packing the court means. Packing the court doesn't mean filling a vacancy as it comes open. It's expanding the size of the court to create new vacancies. And only the left is doing that. But the left is smart. The left is very strategic about language, and they're doing what they typically do, which is trying to change the language so that the language itself favors leftism. Another version of this is the questions asked, the headlines of articles, all that. It always assumes the good about the left, accuses the right in just the question or statement itself. And this is something that they're very good at. And because they control the media, and because the media will just parrot left-wing talking points instantly, AP News has articles pushing this false narrative right now. It's been an effective strategy for them. And that's one reason we created our page, because we want to be truthful, not deceptive, use the real meaning of language. Think about this. They want to change the meaning of words like packing the court for political purposes, just like they want to change the meaning of the Constitution for political purposes. The left wing in America today is not honest. But we at So You Want the Truth About pledge to be. So I hope you enjoyed this first episode today. If you did, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you don't already follow us on Instagram, please follow us there. And if you stay tuned, we'd love to have you join us again. Thanks.